A man who lives alone is easy to misread. Most people look at him and assume his life is missing something. Living alone changes the way a man moves through the world. The pressure he carried for years starts falling off piece by piece, almost without him noticing. But from the outside, none of that shows. People only see the surface. He's by himself, so they think they understand the whole story. They don't. Take a breath here. This part matters more than people think. Most of them haven't lived alone a single week, but somehow they think they're certified experts on his life. If you've ever been that man, you know life isn't shrinking at all. It's rearranging itself into something more honest. This isn't isolation. Quiet moments just make things clearer. It isn't defeat. It's a man stepping back into his own space and realizing it fits him better than he expected. So let's open this chapter from the inside, not from the assumptions people make when they see a man standing on his own. Ask yourself this for a second. Who decided your life was incomplete? You or people watching from the sidelines? When a man finally stands on his own, something curious happens. People start narrating his life for him. They guess, they assume, they project their own fears onto the space he keeps for himself. They see a quiet life and jump to conclusions that were never true. But they rarely stop long enough to ask what that part of his life is actually made of. People think his life is empty, but it's not. They think he's moving differently now, losing momentum, but it can mean he finally stopped living on someone else's terms. It starts feeling heavy. The constant opinions, the expectations that push into every corner of his day. He no longer wants any of it running his life. A man sitting quietly in a repair shop told a younger customer, "I didn't slow down. I just stopped rushing." It wasn't a story about free time. It was a lesson about choosing pace. Sometimes a man just decides he's done running errands for everyone else. A man only reaches that point after enough years have shown him what truly deserves his time. He isn't withdrawing. He's choosing what finally feels right. And here's the shift most people never recognize. He's just breathing in his own space again. Every man knows that feeling when life finally stops pulling. It doesn't sound dramatic, but most turning points aren't. And for many men, that's the first time in years something inside finally turns upward again. He knows it in small moments, like standing in a supermarket aisle and buying only what actually serves him. But a man rebuilding himself is never bored. He's busy choosing better. Most men know the difference between boredom and solid ground long before anyone else does. That shift isn't fading, it's him recalibrating. If you look closely, you'd see it in small details. The way he closes his door at night and finally feels at home instead of trapped. And the moment a man recalibrates, every part of his life starts shifting in ways only he can feel at first. Most people only see the stillness, but that stillness is just a man getting his footing back. A man doesn't slow down. He just sets a different tempo in the right direction. Peace isn't silence. It's the point where he has nothing left to prove. If that line feels familiar, even a small nod here lets me know I'm speaking to the right men. People think he gave up on love, but he didn't. Ever since I started living single, people kept handing me labels. He's scared of love. He's avoiding commitment. He's closed off. My life isn't built on their assumptions. What people don't understand is this. When a man stops chasing, it's not the death of his love life. It's the beginning of his self-respect. There comes a season where a man finally feels the weight of every connection he once forced. He said, "I didn't walk away from love. I just move on my own timing now." He remembers sitting alone at a small diner, the waitress asking if he was waiting for someone. And that was the moment he realized he didn't need company to feel whole. Moments like that change a man more than loud lessons ever could. People think he gave up on love. But no, he just stopped caring in relationships alone. Love only works when two people lift it. A man becomes dangerous in the best way when he finally stops carrying what was never his. Love wasn't the problem. The cost he paid for the wrong kind was. That shift is where a man's second chapter quietly begins. And that's when love, the real kind, finally has a chance to find him. He didn't give up on love. He gave up being the sole carrier in every relationship he entered. It arrives when he learns that deciding well is far more powerful than deciding fast. People think he's lonely, but he's not. They see him skip gatherings, leave early, keep his circle tight, but that's not what's happening, not even close. He starts feeling the weight of every interaction, not emotionally, but in his own bandwidth. You can measure a man's growth by the conversations he no longer forces. That shift sneaks up on you before you even notice it. And honestly, no man over 40 has energy to waste on the wrong rooms. He isn't hiding. He just holds his ground with his finite energy. He's not disappearing. He's just done spending himself on the wrong rooms. He's not guarding his energy. He's guarding his future from the wrong people. At a small gathering, someone joked that he was escaping again. Leaving wasn't escape. It was choosing the room that didn't drain all his bandwidth. Sometimes it's as simple as letting a phone ring because he already knows the call is another request, not a conversation. Every man hits an age where he stops answering out of guilt. That's the age where his real life finally begins. Half the time, he's not leaving early because he's tired. He already knows exactly how that last hour will go. It's not rude, it's awareness. He stops forcing his presence into rooms when the room stops feeling right. From the outside, it might look like distance, too selective, too alone. But look again. That's what fits his life now, not distance. A man who knows what sits right with him moves through the world differently, and everyone feels it. Most of the time, he's just managing his capacity wisely. He's finally living it without losing himself in the process. One day you realize the real loneliness wasn't being by yourself. It was standing in crowds that never really saw you. That's the day a man stops forcing himself to fit spaces that shrink him. A man doesn't arrive at that way of seeing in his 20s. It comes after decades of watching that drains him and what restores him. And that's why solitude feels different at his age. A man with solid footing is never lonely. He just doesn't give his time to the wrong people. Distance isn't withdrawal. It's wisdom choosing where to land. If you recognize yourself in that shift, you're already part of the kind of men this channel was built for. People think he has no direction, but he does. There's a point in a man's life when he stops putting his emotions on display. People confuse calm with confusion, but a steady man is never lost. His direction is etched into his actions, not shouted on social media. Not because he's cold, not because he's guarded, but because he finally understands that real feeling doesn't need an audience to exist. That's why he doesn't move loudly anymore. The direction of his life is already set long before anyone else notices the shift. When he was younger, he reacted fast. Age has a way of sharpening what really matters. Now he's learned something sharper. Not every moment calls for expression. Direction appears the moment a man stops proving and starts understanding. That's when he finally gets clear footing. He doesn't need certainty written out. The way his day settles is proof enough. Living alone amplifies that strength. There's no pressure to react instantly, no expectation to perform softness or toughness on cue. Most men don't realize how exhausting that act was until they finally set it down. And when he finally chooses to speak, it lands. Men that age don't waste words, because every word comes from a place he's already faced, not a place he's trying to avoid. He's just done performing it. Most men find their direction quietly long before anyone else notices, and direction shows up in tiny choices, like choosing a morning walk instead of scrolling the news, because he knows which one actually steadies him. Sometimes it appears in the smallest shift, the way he stops explaining his plans, and the way he protects his mornings. When he says no to an unexpected call, that's not being busy. When he says no to an unexpected call, he isn't being rude. He's simply protecting the path he's finally clear about. Those small shifts tell you he's not drifting. Sometimes direction is nothing more than a man quietly changing one habit. That one habit can change everything about the next 10 years. Direction isn't loud. It's a man finally moving like he means it. A man with direction doesn't talk about where he's going. His life already shows it. People think his home is cold, but it isn't. People often picture a man living alone as someone moving through cold, empty rooms. But rooms don't feel empty when they finally stop taking energy from him. A man who lives alone doesn't wait for someone else to bring warmth into his home. He builds it himself. He pays attention to the small things that make a room feel like it belongs to him, not anyone else's expectations. He sets up his home in ways that make sense to him, nothing more. There's a kind of comfort that shows up only when a man stops arranging his life for show. No pretending. Men get tired of pretending. Just straightforward living. Just a space that finally feels straightforward enough for him to relax. One man who lived alone for years kept his home simple, but intentional. Sometimes one clear choice speaks louder than a dozen explanations. Even the way he keeps his kitchen simple tells you everything. He only holds on to the tools he uses daily, nothing meant for show. Sometimes it's just a chair by the window, a worn mug, and the sound of his own footsteps in a hallway he finally enjoys walking down. Warmth isn't created by company, it's created by intention. This home is the only place he doesn't have to perform. And a man who has stood on his own long enough knows how to create intention without waiting for permission. He moves without being watched. A home becomes warm the moment a man stops pretending he's fine and actually makes space to be fine. It comes alive the moment he walks through the door. That's warmth. That's home. A home built from honesty always gives a man a second start. A man who lives alone isn't avoiding warmth. He's creating it on his own terms. People think he lacks warmth because the comfort he prefers isn't flashy. But if they looked closer, they'd see something unmistakable. His home isn't empty. It finally reflects the man he became when nobody was telling him who to be. Any home built on honesty becomes a man's first real source of strength. When a man creates his own comfort, it's something no one can take away. He doesn't need anyone to bring the fire. Up to this point, you see a pattern. People misunderstand him because they only see the surface, not the years that shaped him. People think his standards are too high, but he just finally knows himself. Have you ever been told you're too picky, like it's some kind of flaw? People throw that line around if a man choosing carefully means he's impossible to satisfy. People assume his caution means he's hard to reach, but it usually means he finally understands what no longer works for him. Age doesn't make a man picky. It just removes his tolerance for nonsense. But the moment someone says it, it usually reveals something they never considered. A man doesn't raise his standards to impress anyone. He raises them because he remembers what it cost him when he didn't. People think the reason he's single is because no one measures up. But that's not the story at all. He isn't single because no one qualifies. He's single because he refuses to shrink himself to fit into the wrong narrative again. There's nothing arrogant about that. It's clarity earned from the years where he said yes when he should have walked away. Most men learn boundaries the expensive way. People see him, decide slowly, and label it unrealistic. They don't realize he's been in places where he had to shrink himself just to keep the peace. He remembers waiting an hour for someone who always arrived late, and that was the day he realized respecting his own time mattered more than being agreeable. Once a man recognizes that pattern, he doesn't judge himself for being selective. That was the moment he finally learned that compatibility matters more than chemistry. Looks fade, habits stay. Choose habits that won't collapse on you when life leans hard. His standards didn't grow out of pride. They grew out of survival. Living alone gives him the space to feel what aligns without distraction. So when he chooses again, it won't be out of fear. It'll be because something or someone finally matches. People think his standards are too high, but they're looking at the wrong measure. He isn't demanding perfection. What he's done with is sacrificing himself for the wrong story. That's not pride, that's experience turning into wisdom. He didn't gain insight, he finally stopped ignoring what experience already taught him. And wisdom, especially earned the hard way, changes every relationship afterward. A man who knows his worth stops mistaking chemistry for a future. A man with standards isn't hard to please, he's just hard to fool. If that truth hit a little deeper than expected, stay with me. The next part will make even more sense. People think he's emotionally distant, but they're wrong. It's strange how quickly people judge a man who stands on his own 2 feet. Independence isn't distance, it's what a man learns when he runs out of people to lean on. The moment he carries himself well, someone always claims he's too independent, as if stability is a warning sign instead of something earned. Independence isn't a choice. It's the result of him realizing no one else can carry his weight. But independence isn't something a man chooses out of pride. It's something he builds after realizing no one else can carry the load he once hoped someone would help him hold. There was a time he leaned on people who were never steady. Back then, people called him distant because he didn't explain what he was carrying, not because he felt less. After a few chapters like that, a man learns something essential. The only stability he can count on is the stability he builds himself. Every man has one chapter that hardens him. If you've ever felt that, you know it wasn't drama, it was survival. Strength in a man his age isn't loud anymore. It's the kind of steadiness only long years can build. Not having a girlfriend doesn't mean he resists connection. It means he no longer bends himself to earn it. And here's the moment most people never notice. Strength doesn't grow when everything is fine. It grows when a man has no choice but to be his own anchor. People mistake his calm for emotional distance, but most of the time, he's simply careful about who he lets close enough to matter. Living alone sharpens that presence. He cooks his own meals, manages his own pace, not because he's avoiding connection, but because he stopped outsourcing stability. That kind of independence isn't selfish, it's hard-earned footing. And when he does let someone close, it's on equal ground. Not from need, not from fear, but from self-respect. The right person won't be threatened by his independence. They'll feel safer because of it. People think he's too independent, but what they're really seeing is a man who learned how to stand and refuses to go back to the version of himself that kept falling for the wrong reasons. If you listen closely now, you'd hear it in his voice. Fewer explanations. Even simple interactions remind him of this, like when a cashier asks about his day and he answers honestly instead of putting on the polite mask he used to wear. Silence doesn't scare a grown man. Chaos does. He isn't distant. He's just careful about who he lets into the fortress he fought so hard to build. People think he stopped caring about connections, but he didn't. A man doesn't stop caring, he stops caring than everyone else. A middle-aged single man said something most men don't admit out loud. I didn't stop wanting connection. I just stopped offering it to people who never offered it back. After a few chapters of giving more than he got back, he learned something most people never slow down long enough to understand. Connection is only meaningful when both people show up with the same level of honesty. He remembers the everyday situations that changed the way he paid attention. Nothing dramatic, just patterns that revealed who was truly present and who wasn't. They simply taught him to value connections that stand on both legs, not just his. From then on, he stopped evaluating people by their words and started watching their consistency. Who listens when he speaks? Who respects his pace? The misunderstanding is simple. People think he has stopped caring. But what really happened is this. He thinks of the friend who only called when they needed something, and how that tiny pattern taught him to handle his effort with care. One small betrayal teaches a man more than 100 promises. He didn't stop caring. He stopped negotiating for the bare minimum. When he does let someone in, it's real. It's mutual. Not built on fear or loneliness, but on the kind of presence that doesn't demand performance. So no, he hasn't stopped caring about relationships. He just stopped treating all relationships as if they were equal. That honesty isn't distance. It's maturity. It's peace earned slowly, over years that he doesn't talk about anymore. And once a man protects his connections with that much honesty, every commitment he considers afterward becomes more deliberate. A man doesn't stop caring. He just stops carrying relationships built on one-sided effort. People think he avoids commitment, but that's not the truth. People love to assume that a man who lives alone must be afraid of commitment. They throw around words like hesitant, avoiding responsibility, as if staying single for a while is a confession of weakness instead of a sign of clarity. But the truth is simple. He's not running away from commitment. Commitment never scared him. What he walked away from was disorder. He's not afraid of commitment. He's afraid of tying his life to the kind of energy that drags him back into chaos. A man doesn't fear commitment. He fears committing to the wrong energy. He's not afraid of commitment. He's afraid of building a life that didn't feel like his anymore. People misunderstand his caution. They look at his measured way of moving and assume he's avoiding responsibility when he's actually protecting the part of his life that finally runs smoothly. They think it means he's closed off. He's learned that commitment only works when both people know how to keep the environment calm. He isn't avoiding commitment. When he commits now, it's thoughtful. It's not rushed by loneliness or pushed by pressure. People think he avoids commitment. From the outside, his patience looks like hesitation, but it's simply a man refusing to build another life that stopped feeling like his. What he avoids now is a life that runs on constant fixing. He wants a partnership where both people preserve the home they're building. He hasn't closed the door. People confuse his patience with fear, but patience is just a man protecting what finally works. He just stopped opening it for chaos. He once watched a couple arguing in a parking lot over the same problem that they fought about last month, and quietly promised himself he wouldn't repeat that cycle. He'd rather eat dinner alone at a small, steady table than share a feast in a life that always feels one crack away from breaking. A steady table is better than a chaotic feast. He's not avoiding building a life together. He's avoiding having to spend the rest of his life fixing a relationship with no foundation. A steady life isn't caution. It's wisdom finally choosing peace on purpose. People think he'll be alone forever, but they don't see what's coming. They look at his routines, the way he handles his day without anyone helping, and they jump to one conclusion: he's locked into this life permanently. A steady life doesn't mean a closed future, but that assumption says more about their fears than his future. This is not the end of the story. He isn't waiting for anything. He's just not rushing into another mistake. A man doesn't stay single because he's incapable of connection. That's not isolation, that's timing. They don't see the way he still pays attention to kindness, or how his face softens when someone speaks with respect. They don't see the door he keeps open, just not for everyone. A retired electrician explained it in a way only single men can. I'm not done with love. I'm just done rushing into the wrong kind of it. That line stays with you because it's exactly how men grow into themselves. And because of that, he won't let the wrong energy in. But the right one, he'll recognize it instantly. It doesn't rush him. It matches him. It doesn't demand a performance. It makes him feel like he can finally put the performance down. So no, he won't be alone forever. The life he's living now is built on intention, not urgency. Sometimes all it takes is a small moment, like seeing an older couple holding hands on an evening walk, to remind him that the right timing still exists. He's simply moving at a pace that doesn't require him to break himself to keep up. If this met you at the right moment, tell me in the comments which chapter you're living through right now. And if you want to walk this road with other men like you, stay and subscribe. People often misunderstand a man who lives alone. None of this comes from bitterness. It's simply the result of knowing his own limits. Living alone didn't shut his future. It helped him repair the parts he had been neglecting. If you're that man, don't let anyone rush your steps. You're doing fine. Most men only look behind when reversing a car, not their life. You're building a life that finally works for you. You didn't find a new sense of yourself. You simply grew into who you were becoming. And when someone eventually arrives, they won't walk into a place shaped by fear or hesitation. They'll enter a space where everything feels simple and real. And that's the kind of setup no one can misunderstand. Thanks for spending this time with me here on Move or Die Stoic. It means more than you know.